Okay, so I'm here representing those that don't really consider themselves to be natural techies or perhaps even technophobes. I don't really think I'm a technophobe, but I'm definitely not a dinosaur, and I do need expert training and teaching in new technologies and even some old technologies. But we don't all have to be experts. And we need experts to guide us, and we're experts in other things and in things that we're good at. I do like learning, and I think I have some good ideas, but I just need a bit of help with how to implement them and that sort of thing. We've got experts to guide us, and they can help us to make life easier and help us to use new methods to communicate, to make life and work easier, and to encourage the young people that we work with as well, to encourage them to engage fully in all the aspects of the world and life generally. And I'm quite proud of what I've been able to produce and the applications that I've used. I'm no different to anybody else who isn't very confident about technology, but I've persevered and I've done things just a step at a time to implement my ideas and keep my ears open for anything technological that might be of interest. I've also had to adapt my job, particularly over the last few months, and get involved in other aspects of the department. Hence this picture here of me in our virtual reception. So that's something new that I've had to undertake. This is just a few things about my background and the sort of things that I've done in my working life. I'm not any different to anybody else who isn't very confident about tech, and my background doesn't include the much use of technology. It didn't exist for most people when I was younger. My degree dissertation was typed by a friend who had a typewriter. In my first job in 1982, my boss used a manual typewriter and I had an electric one. I even went to evening classes to learn how to touch type. And that's coming really useful over the years, so hopefully that's something that other people will have found useful. I was self-taught in all my jobs where computers were used, which was only from about 1986. I started work at the Royal Opera House and I ran the mailing list. There's about 32,000 records on a system that was built internally by our IT manager, and I helped to write the user manual for that. So, and in subsequent years, I had jobs where we shared computers, and I didn't have any formal computer training until I moved back to Grimsby in 2000, and I did some City and Guilds courses in Word and Excel, etc., and that led me to working here at the Grimsby Institute. My approach to technology, and especially over the last few months, has been to try things and to try not to panic if they don't work, and if it seems like so many other people over the last few months have been in a similar sort of boat. You know, you see people even on the television who haven't muted their who have muted, and you can't hear them. And I did have a period of being overwhelmed during lockdown, and I didn't know which way to turn. But I have developed new ways of working, and I'll be using those in the future and making improvements as I go along. So hopefully this is something that other people who aren't natural technological people will find. My current job in schools liaison is of course a bit difficult at the moment and has been over the last few months. Most of what I do disappeared when the schools were closed, so I had to think about ways of engaging with potential students virtually. Previously I'd have been organising big events with lots of students attending, but of course that wasn't possible, so trying to keep in touch during lockdown was quite important. It was mostly based around the year 11s who had applied, and the year 10s will somehow have missed out on contact. So we need to think about that going forward. That's something that we need to consider. My presentations in schools are something that we do at this time of year every year. So when I first started working in schools liaison, my predecessor didn't use technology very much, and neither did schools come to that. Jim, my predecessor, he was a great communicator and he spoke really engagingly, and PowerPoints didn't seem to be really necessary, and it would have been difficult in any case. Smart boards and teachers with computers on the desks, they were just developing, and there was a time when I communicated with teachers by fax when the rest of the world were using email, so there was some catching up to do there. As regards school presentations, I was thrown in the deep end when my colleague was off ill suddenly when I very first started the job, so I needed a prop, something to prompt me, so another colleague helped me put together a PowerPoint, which I'd never done before, and that seemed to work. And since then, I've developed that using new ideas. This particular picture on here is one where all the subjects, they all fly in at different times. I've used different features using videos, and each year I've tried to do something different using my own ideas, and making it different each time, and I have to adapt it to take a different amount of time as well. But I've done my own research and found out about the different types of facilities that have been available. Virtual school presentations, that's really going to be the future. That's the way it's going to work in the future, I think. So that's something that I'm planning on doing more. It's likely that schools won't be having assemblies, so I may have to do presentations like I'm doing today, sharing the screen, but I can also be in more than one classroom. So if assemblies aren't possible at all, and they're not even going to be in assemblies, I could be in several different classrooms. I just need to know the email address of the teacher in that room and invite them to the meeting. I've already done a similar one like that with Skegness Academy towards the end of the school year, and the students accessed from home, and I was able to answer questions from students and staff as well as doing the presentation. And they did a practice the week before, so that was really reassuring, and they organised it really well. So that was a great bonus. I've been using Kahoot. Kahoot is something that is a quiz. It's essentially a quiz, and I've been doing it in schools in real life quite a lot. They use phones or tablets to answer questions, and it's been quite popular. The reason I adapted this approach was to keep the attention of students in a classroom when we were doing small sessions rather than in assemblies, and interaction was really important. So this was ideal. Providing iPads for them to use is great. The students really like using those. Though I do need to delete all the selfies that they've taken afterwards, so that's always a bit of a problem. And I adapt the questions to suit the occasion and develop different ways of explaining things through those questions. But during lockdown, I was asked to do some transition sessions for students, and I thought this might be a good idea, and I assumed I could just share the screen. But it turned out the students were at home, the key workers were either in their cars or at school, so we had to work out a way of doing it. And on Kahoot, there's a facility called Assign, where you can send a link to the student to do the quiz in their own time and then talk about it later. We did it almost immediately later, and I used this with the group, shared the screen using Teams for others when they were available to do that, with their teachers who were helping. So that was quite a technological thing to work out, using several different devices as well, and with the teachers using different devices as well. So that was quite a tricky thing to do. But Kahoot is a fantastic facility. As you can see on here, there are various different ones that we've done on different topics, and here are just some of the questions. We start off with a ridiculous one just to break the ice, and then we go on and we can talk about them in between. So that works quite well. So Kahoot's a good facility to use. Flipgrid is another similar sort of thing where the students will answer questions using videos. I do like to take notice of what other people are doing, and I was introduced to Flipgrid at the Institute by Elaine, who used it for a scavenger hunt around college for new learners to find their way around college, and we thought we could adapt the same principle for tours around the campus for groups of potential learners. We haven't used it much yet, but when we have used it, it's been very successful. But of course in lockdown things are different, so I've researched Flipgrid and developed another way of using it so that it could be used for keeping warm activities. This particular one, I've based it around all our different subject areas, relating them to lockdown and what was in their homes, and they could film around their homes and use what was there to answer questions. In future, I think I'm going to improve on the instructions because not too many of them took up doing this, and perhaps they thought it was a bit daunting because we used a lot of topics, a lot of subjects, so maybe I would do individual ones another time. I've also thought of using Flipgrid for potential students to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, let us know about their aspirations, what course they would like to do and why. It may be that they don't want to do this on video, but it's worth a try. And I also wondered if it could be used for potential students to video themselves asking us questions or telling us about their career and education aims for the future. So, you know, there's plenty of opportunities to use that, and it could help students improve their presentation skills, their confidence, and their use of technology. So there's different uses for that. And these are some of the areas that I've used for Flipgrid. So Teams is obviously something that we've all used a lot. There may be other methods of communication, but this is the one that we're using. And I previously used it to share documents and comments on particular projects, and it worked great for those situations, but I wasn't really aware of the wider applications, and that became more apparent during lockdown. Did really struggle with this at the beginning and getting into meetings, and it was quite a challenge. I did manage in the end, but a lot of trial and error, and remembering the training that we'd had as well. You know, there's quite often the training that we do, things do stick in your mind, and that did remind me about that, so that was good. And as a team, we used Teams just to say good morning when we were working from home, just to keep up morale and catch up with colleagues, formal and informal meetings. I found that setting meeting times on the calendar was easier using the scheduling assistant, so that avoided clashes as long as everybody's calendars are up to date. I think that's a good thing to use. And it's also worth mentioning that there are different features on the desktop and the web version, and I found that was quite a useful thing to know. And of course I use Teams for Kahoot, as I've mentioned before. I'm going to be using it for school presentations. I could also use it for meetings with school teachers, and of course the virtual reception that we saw before, that was set up by our IT team, and that's been invaluable really. So open events is another thing that lots of colleges, universities and organisations have been doing virtually. Some have been more successful than others, but it's we've had to develop this with new ideas and new ways of sharing information so that potential students could have access to what we've got to offer. I haven't been involved in the detailed preparation of this, but I helped with gathering information from curriculum staff. And then we also had a Facebook Live alongside of it, and that was running to send people in the direction of the virtual open event and answering questions from people watching. I did realise at that point that using the right device for the job is important. It didn't work quite so well on the iPad, much better on the laptop, so using a different device can make a big difference. The other thing that we're going to be developing more now is the course information on the website. I've always said that we definitely need a physical paper course guide, and I've been quite firm about that. But actually, and I've always been reluctant to reduce it, but I think actually now, since lockdown, people have been accessing online information much more. So I think we need to have more information on the website, and we're just going to have a small mini course guide directing people to the website. So I've been working with the marketing department to improve the course information on the website, and learning lots through that, working with them and working with the web developer as well. We've also discussed open events and how they should happen and be promoted, and decided to plan for the next few months, but we don't really feel confident about advertising dates for 2021 yet. So we're not going to put those in the mini guide, and we'll advertise those digitally once we know how it's going to work, how things are going as well, because planning at the moment isn't going to be the easiest thing to do. And everybody's got so much more used to using online resources, so I think it's time to reduce the amount of paper that we use and go forward that way, using digital. So these are some of the things that I've learned on my journey to being more confident with technology. I like to keep my eyes open to see what other people are doing, and I try not to allow myself to be overwhelmed by the enormity of a task, and I break it down into smaller sections. I realise that others are in the same situation, and not panicking is the way to go. You know, especially if you're in an assembly of 15 to 16-year-olds or in a Teams meeting, you can't get away with that. I've used other things as well. I've also used Twitch and Google Hangouts with other colleges. Obviously lots of social media, and Zoom to varying degrees over the last few months. I've been doing regular yoga classes actually on Zoom, and that's been a technological challenge sometimes, but that's also helped with my state of mind and not panicking about technological failures. So you know, there's something to be said for that, but you can see on the screen here the different things that I've learnt, and hopefully it will help those that are feeling not so confident about technology. So I hope this has helped.